Kamala Harris lost. And she lost not because she didn't resonate with the voters or she had poor campaign strategy. No, it was deeper than that. And in this video, we're going to go through the real reasons that she lost, the ones nobody wants to admit. And yes, I'm a black man who's delivering this message. It's time to say what needs to be said. Get ready, buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. When they go low, we go high, right? Yeah, that's what they told us. But here's the problem with that. Unfortunately, when they go low and get in the mud and you go high and stay classy, you're not seen as classy, you're seen as weak. When Donald Trump was out here calling Kamala Harris dumb and she just let it slide, that's a missed opportunity. If it were me, I would have said, let's line up these transcripts. We'll see who's dumb. Let's look at my paper, check my paperwork, and we can see exactly who's dumb and who's not. I have a resume. And I'm not going to sit back here and say, well, I'm going to let the resume speak for itself. No, I'm going to show you. I'm going to put up and shut you up. So when she didn't do that, I think she was seen as weak. And it allowed Trump supporters to continue to see her as dumb and continue to see her that way because she did not respond. Now, I'm here to tell you why Kamala Harris lost. Now, hear me out. Don't jump to conclusions. Now, I already touched on it. The first reason, not fighting back. No, I get it. Trump is the king of insults. He's made a name insulting people and giving them nicknames and calling them names. But dude, it's crazy not to follow any of that up. Like just to allow it, just to sit back and just take it. I get it. It's tough. But people love a fighter. They want somebody who's going to fight back. They don't want somebody who's going to sit there and be called dumb and then just allow it and just say, well, people will realize I'm not dumb. No, fight back. Say something. Kamala Harris had an opportunity to call out the nepotism. Like Trump got into Wharton not because he had great grades or anything like that. It's because his father had connections. Call that out. Yes, he loves to rely on the fact that he graduated from Wharton. Call out why he even got in the first place. Again, let's line up our transcripts. Now, I don't know what Kamala Harris graduated with, what her GPA was. Might not have been that great, but I assure you, I'm not going to allow you to call me dumb. I'm going to stack this resume up next to yours. I'm going to sit on the paper and say, let's go. Because it's so easy. Call out that nepotism. Americans hate nepotism. Look at how they're treating Bronny James in basketball. Americans hate nepotism. And that was a perfect opportunity for you to say, hey, at least I didn't need daddy just to get me into this school. But did she call it out? Nope. She let it ride. And that's not how you win against a guy who thrives in the mud. You got to get down dirty. You got to roll up your sleeves. And I'm not saying you got to go super low, but you got to jump back. You got to clap back. Even if it's as simple as saying, I know you are, but what am I? Something. Just respond. Something. And I get it. Voters on camera would say, I just want the name calling to stop. But there was only one person who was doing the name calling. And at the end of the day, that's the person who was winning, and that's the person who ended up winning. So sometimes you just got to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris lost because she was unwilling to get in the mud. Secondly, let's talk about messaging and consistency in messaging. When the Republicans get a message, they're like a pit bull with a bone. They stick with that message. I don't know how many commercials I saw about transgender rights in prison. And I'm like, first of all, I don't know that many transgender people. They're not a large subset of the population. And then we're talking about prisoners, which they're, 1 million prisoners? But the Republicans stuck with it. And it became an issue because they stuck with it. They kept on pushing those commercials, talking about transgender rights and gender affirming care for prisoners. And again, it might be one or two that even want to go that far. And what is gender affirming care? Not even saying what that is. That's not a full out operation. That might be some pills here and there. And not only that, Trump, under his first administration, was allowing gender affirming care to prisoners. So just not allowing them to stick to that same message, but seeing that they stick to that same message, doing the same thing. Whatever happened to calling them weird? Whatever happened to talking about the COVID response? COVID was bad, and it was bad throughout the world. But it didn't have to be as bad as it was. The response that we had in the US was terrible. And that rested with Donald Trump. Why not call that out? Are you better off than you were 4 years ago? If my calculations are correct, it's 2024, and that was 2020. Where were you and how were you feeling in September, October, November of 2020? I'm telling you, we were dealing with mask mandates. We were dealing with a depressed economy. We were dealing with a depressed stock market. Like, where were you back then in 2020? How in your message are you not sticking to that and realizing that there is a message there to be driven? When he says, are you better off 4 years ago? Count it up. 2020, not 2019. And by the way, in 2019, the Fed was actually easing monetary policy. So things were already coming down prior to the COVID outbreak. Stick to the message. Actually, find the message and then stick to the message. Them worrying about women's bodies and talking about how to police bodies, that is weird. That is strange. Why do you care? Why do you care? You've got to drill the same points over and over and over again. But they kept hopping all over the place. And it's just like, if you're hopping all over the place, do you even have a message? You had a great message, but you didn't stick to it. And that's the second reason Kamala lost. And the third reason that she lost, another miss, the timing of her endorsements. I get it. You want them to all come in and you want them to all thrill people. But early voting started weeks before Election Day. There were so many people who voted prior to J-Lo and Mark Anthony and LeBron James giving his endorsement. I think they gave their endorsements Bad Bunny. I think they gave them their endorsements, 3 or 4 days before Election Day? Some people had already put in their ballots by then. If you look at the numbers, there was record numbers of people voting early this year. And you missed them by having some endorsements coming in late. Taylor Swift was early. It would have been nice if Beyonce had come out sooner. The timing of endorsements hurt. They should have come out sooner. And then, okay, all right, let's take away the celebrity endorsements. Let's look at the Republican endorsements that you got. Why couldn't you get General Mattis? Why couldn't you get John Kelly to speak out if they were really that against Trump? They were not willing to give you their endorsement outright on wax, out loud, instead of having to parse some sort of readings and newspaper clippings that they had from years ago. If you weren't able to get their endorsements outright, then don't use them at all. Find something you can use. Or instead of moving further to the right or to the middle right, just stick with the middle left. Go with some more progressive proposals, things that might be able to make people more money. And that leads me to the fourth mistake. Failure to really delve into the economy. I get it. People are dealing with inflation. And that most of that inflation did happen under Joe Biden's watch. It did happen under your watch as vice president. But unfortunately, deflation, which is what people want lower prices, not to maintain prices. They want lower prices. You got to let them know that unfortunately, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get lower prices. Deflation is the enemy of a healthy economy. The Fed fights against deflation. That's not what you want. So we're not getting lower prices. What you can do is apologize for the inflation and talk about how to make them more money, not how the prices can go down. How can you put more money into their pockets? not talk about how you're going to build more houses and things like that. Talk about how you're going to put more money in their pockets. You've got one of the strongest economies. Wages, surprise to the upside, are higher than expected. Talk about that. Now, wages aren't higher than they were in 19, but they are higher than they were in 2020. Talk about that. Talk about the wealth effect. Talk about how you're going to build upon that in 25, 26, 27, 28. Help the U.S. consumer understand that. But by failing to talk about the economy, by failing to address and understand and let people know that inflation, yes, it's out of control. It was out of control, but it's now under control. And now the next step is putting more money in their pockets. That's a good economic message. And she didn't deliver. And the fifth reason, the whole fascism thing. I get it. And I'm not going to lie. In my pea brain, it took me forever to understand what fascism was. And the funny part is, nobody defined what fascism was. You got Trump out here calling her a Marxist, fascist. She's going back with you're a fascist. I don't think most people know what that even is. And so I had to look it up. I had to do some research and realize what the heck fascism was and why it's a problem. That was never explained. It was just name calling, but like high level name calling. Now, what they really should have talked about was an oligarchy and what that means, because that's way easier to understand and way easier to see happening. Why is Elon Musk now fighting for you? Why is Jeff Bezos not allowing Washington Post to endorse you? Because in an oligarchy, the rich get richer. The rich are the powerful. The rich are the elite. And you know what? That's essentially what they have in Russia. So compare it to Putin in Russia. You know that Donald Trump looks up to Putin. You know he admires the way that he rules. When you talk about drawing those parallels, draw them properly and then explain them. Don't just draw a parallel. Donald Trump admires Putin. People don't even really know why Putin is seen as evil. They don't even know that he's had elections that have been shrouded in controversy. I just hear that Putin is evil and Russia is evil. That's it. Tell them why. Draw those parallels. Don't just name call fascist and think that that's enough. People don't even know what that is. I can't say that people know what an oligarchy is, but explain it. And when you say that it's the rich and the elite that are the most powerful, that those are the folks who are running the government, I think people can understand that very easily. But unfortunately, she blew it. And that's the fifth reason why she lost. At the end of the day, Kamala Harris's campaign wasn't just weak, it was out of touch. It talked over people's heads. It didn't address their issues. She didn't get in the mud. And that's not just with Donald Trump, that's in the issues too. Get in the mud and explain how you're going to help put more money in people's pockets. Get in the mud and make sure that folks know you're not dumb. Get in the mud and get those endorsements earlier. And I say this as somebody who wanted her to win. But at the end of the day, I'm not afraid to call her out either. I think that she was way more qualified than Donald Trump. I think that her campaign could have been set up better. Because if you want to win in this game, you got to play the game right. You got to play the game better. You can't play it the old school ways, not against Donald Trump. He's not playing the old school ways. If you're thinking that people are just like, oh yeah, well, I wanted to go back to the old way of doing politics, realize they are still voting for him. Even with things not being the old-fashioned way. You got to do it the new way. You got to get in the mud. You got to play the game. Trump set the rules and she refused to play. And that's why she lost. What do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? Let me know in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. Those are my 5 reasons why Kamala really lost. And it's not what everybody else is saying. It's not because her campaign wasn't right necessarily. It's not because she was thrust into the spotlight a little bit late. It's not just because her campaign wasn't right. It was deeper than that. She didn't understand the rules of the game. And when you don't understand the rules of the game, you can't win. Peace.